Hello everybody, my name is Barbarian bringing us yet another video, and in today's video, well, it's Sunday, so that means that we get to go over the overview of the class that I went over on Saturday for the subclasses. Yesterday, I did the Barbarian subclasses where I ranked all of them in one video, which I now realized after trying to talk that much and doing a video that long, probably should break up the longer ones. So anytime that a class has realistically 6 or more, I'll probably break them up so that I can actually go more in depth on every single subclass and not have to rush and miss over any details, so that every single subclass gets the appropriate amount of time of me going over them for a proper ranking and going over them to give you guys a proper overhaul of the subclass so you guys actually have the info that you need to make your own assessments on the subclass, or if you guys are just watching these to get info on the subclasses, then you'll actually have info on the subclass and not be like, oh, this is what he said, and was like, well, okay, actually I messed that up because I was rushing. So, classes that have a lot of subclasses to them, wizard and cleric especially, know that they have way too many at this point, and they keep getting more. Well, the cleric does. Wizard isn't quite getting them every single book at this point, but they seem to really like the cleric because it's pretty easy to make domains. So I'll certainly have my work cut out for me in the what might be a 3-part video for the cleric. But with that brushed aside, let's do what this video is supposed to be about, which is going over the Barbarian in general. So, for anyone who doesn't know, the Barbarian is one of the core classes, one of the OG, has basically always kind of been around as a staple. He is your big boy. He is your D12, the highest hit die you can gain. I believe the only D12 in the game. So if you want somebody who has a lot of HP and doesn't take a lot of damage and can hit extremely hard, the Barbarian's usually your choice, starting off with 1 D12 of HP, which is a lot, by the way. They'll also gain, yep, so you have 1d12 plus con, and then 7 if you're not doing rolls, because you either can roll for a d20, you can either roll for a d20, or d12, not d20, or you can just gain 7, which is more than some characters' max potential HP per level. You can just get 7, plus your constitution modifier, which constitution being essentially your second your second pick. Although, like, you'll either go strength will almost always, I'll say it is always, not almost always, that is always going to be your priority, as that is your damage. So you'll probably go for strength, and then you'll either do constitution to have, just a absurdly high health by the end of the game, or you'll go for dex because that is your AC related stuff. But of course, they also get in a pretty nifty little thing, which I'll just hop over as I'm talking to it. They have Unarmed Defense, which means that while you are not wearing any armor, your AC equals 10 plus your dex plus your constitution, and you can still use a shield and gain this benefit, meaning that most classes will do 10 plus dex, and then they'll wear armor and get like a little boost from that. Well, instead of wearing armor, you can just go 10 dex and constitution, which means that you get your starting 4 strength, then you get like a 3 dex and a 3 con, and your starting AC is 16, and that'll go up every time your dex goes up or every time your constitution goes up, which means that by the end of the game, you can potentially just be sitting there with a plus 5 in each, if that is something you can swing for, which could be, something that you get, meaning that you can have an AC of 20. And along with an AC of 20, meaning that you're fairly hard to get, fairly hard to hit, even if, without a shield, but you can add a shield to this to get to even higher and crazier numbers to somehow get hit through, because your AC will be 20 plus. You'll also have Rage, which raging gives you one of the strongest abilities in the game. So while raging, you gain the following benefits, and all you need to do is use this as a bonus action, which means you can enter a rage and attack in the same turn. So while raging, as long as you're not wearing heavy armor, you have advantage on strength checks and strength saving throws. Note this, checks and saving throws. This does not mean your attack. This means athletics check, or anything else that might be just pure strength checks, and a strength saving throw, so if you're being knocked prone, shoved back, or if a spell is making you do a strength saving throw, this is where you get advantage while raging, athletics check and other things are strength check oriented, that's when this comes in. That it is not giving you advantage on your attack. That's something that some people get mistaken, that they think this is where it comes from. You get advantage on something that you get at a higher level. And then also, when you make a melee weapon attack using strength, you gain a bonus to the damage roll that increases as your levels as a barbarian, as shown in the rage damage column of the barbarian table. Which basically means that every single time you hit, as long as it is a strength-based weapon, you'll be gaining extra damage for free on every single hit. And barbarians can gain extra hits from different abilities, so you can hit multiple times in a turn, which means that you always add it as long as you hit. So you're just going to be doing a lot of damage using strength, which you'll already want to be using strength anyways. So, really strong. But here's the coup de grace of it all. You have resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. So while not only being able to potentially get an extremely high armor class, so you rarely do actually get hit, as long as it isn't magic or something and it's just pure bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage, not like fire or anything like that, unless you pick a certain subclass, then you just half the damage to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. The main and only weapon type damage that is possible are 3's 3. So when that enemy comes at you with the sword and you're raging, they hit you for 10 damage. Psych, they only hit you for 5. Because resistance means that you just straight up, unless it says otherwise, like a resistance of 3, meaning that you just take off 3 damage, resistance means that you half the damage. So if you're getting hit by any of these 3 damage types while raging, you just barely take any damage. Which, that's pretty strong, guys. And then also, if you're all able to cast spells, maybe multi-classing or a subclass is giving you spells, you can't cast them or concentrate them on while raging because all you can think of is rage. Your rage lasts for 1 minute. It ends early if you were knocked unconscious, or if your turn ends and you haven't attacked a hostile creature since your last turn or taken damage since then. Now, what this is saying is that you have to have attacked a hostile creature, meaning that you just have to have tried to hit them, not saying that you damaged a hostile creature, just that you swung at them, and that your last turn or taken damage was since then. Meaning that this beginning half is saying that you have to have attacked, meaning just rolled your d20, not saying that you did hit them, just that you tried to hit them. And then this second half is saying that you did get hit. So if somebody attacks you, but they don't actually hit you, as in they don't break your armor class, then this part does not trigger, which means you lose rage. You can also end your rage on your turn as a bonus action. Once you have raged the number of times shown for your barbarian level in the rages column of the barbarian table, you must finish a long rest before you can rage again. So, fairly simple stuff. You get a rage, giving you a huge amount of benefits, but you can only rage a certain amount of times per day, and then you have to sleep it off. You get more rages as you level up, and you get more damage from this one as you level up too. So, all in all, rage, super strong, and is the main focal point of your barbarian class. And then, as your proficiencies, you'll get light, medium, and shields, which means that the whole stuff about saying don't wear armor, so you cannot wear these, I should say, and get the benefit from this, but that does mean that early on, if wearing light armor or medium armor would give you a higher AC than being unarmored, then just go wear armor is perfectly fine, and then once not wearing armor becomes better than this, then stop wearing the armor. And the only negative is wearing heavy armor, but you're not naturally trained in heavy armor, so there's really no point in wearing heavy armor. And then shields, you can just you can equip those whenever you want. Your weapons are simple and martial weapons, so choose from anything, any weapon imaginable, really. Tools, you don't get any tools, but that's alright, because you're not supposed to be using your brains or anything, you're supposed to be using the big ol' muscles. Your saving throws are strength and constitution, herring back to the fact that strength and constitution are your 2 most important stats, or scores, as you can get, because they'll add to your saving throw bonus here. And then you also get skills between animal handling, athletics, intimidation, nature, perception, and survival. Usually, athletics is always one of the more important ones you can be choosing from, just because it's your strength modifier plus your plus proficiency bonus, so why not make it as high as you can? You'll also gain advantage on those while raging, and you'll usually want to be doing stuff to do with athletics as the Barbarian, because that's kind of your job for the most part. And then anything else is really your choice. If you want to be the intimidating figure because you're already Mr. Muscles over there, if you want to be, you lived in nature for all your life, maybe your clan or tribe did, it would make sense to have this. Anything else, anything for whatever extra little bit of flavor you want to choose from, you can choose them, and then you get that little bit of extra effect on them. Then becoming level 2 gives you reckless attack. Now this is where it comes in, where rage, while raging this part, giving strength and saving checks and saving those that are strength related, this is where the attack part comes in. Starting at 2nd level, you can throw aside all concern for defense to attack with fierce desperation. When you make your first attack on your turn, you can decide to attack recklessly. So this means that it has to be during your first attack. So if you have multiple attacks that you can do within a turn, you have to decide right off the bat. You can't say, oh, I don't want my first attack to be reckless and then do a reckless attack on the second one. You have to do reckless or not reckless. Doing so gives you advantage on melee weapon strikes, on melee weapon attack rolls using strength during this battle. You're already using strength weapons, so, why would you be using like a finesse weapon using your dex? You're the big guy, use them big old muscles of yours. But attack rolls against you have advantage until your next turn, so what this is saying is that you get to roll the d20 twice, giving you the better of the two, but then also when people attack you, they also get a roll at advantage because they get a roll twice and take the better of two. So if you're rolling against something that has like a very low AC, there's really no point in rolling reckless, because then, you're gonna break the AC every time pretty much if you're getting, a +5, +6, just start in the early games. You're gonna be hitting them every time, so there's no point in going reckless. But when you start facing those enemies that, they're having the 20, like the 18 plus range for AC, going reckless wouldn't always be a bad choice. But do realize that that also means that they get advantage, but that isn't too scary, because yes, they might hit you a bit more often, but you are also having all damage while you're raging, so you'll be alright as the big boy himself. And at 2nd level, you also gain Danger Sense. You gain an uncanny sense of when things nearby aren't as they should be, giving you an edge when you dodge away from danger. You have advantage on dex saving throws against effects that you can see, such as traps and spells. To gain this benefit, you can't be blinded, deafened, or incapacitated. So basically, as long as you're conscious and have your senses, to you, you gain advantage on dex saving throws when they're related to anything you can see, traps and spells. So if, the enemy wizard has just thrown a fireball at you, well, you can see it, which means you gain advantage on it. So roll 2 d20s, take the higher of the two numbers, and you just saved because you had an advantage. But that also does mean that if you're in total darkness and cannot see because you do not have dark vision, and you step on a trap, you couldn't see the trap coming, which means you don't get advantage on that dex saving throw. You just get the normal save. So, try to keep your wits about you. Having dark vision is always helpful too. At 3rd level, you gain your subclass. I went over the subclasses yesterday, so no point in really looking over those right now. At 4th level, as with basically every other class, you gain your ASI, which can either increase your ability scores or you can choose a feat. Recommended feats, I don't think I went over this for the Alchemist, but recommended feats for the good old your good old Barbarian. Alert, which will give you a +5 to your initiative roll, always really good. Getting something like Charger if you like running towards your enemies, so you can get a little bit of extra stuff there. Crushers if you're using blunt force weapons to gain extra damage while doing extra effects while doing bludgeoning weapons. Getting stuff like Durable, they have a bit more defense there. Getting other things, which can be so much else. Fighting initiative is good for almost any. It's pretty much good for almost any of the martial classes, as you can take a couple of the fighting related battle master perks, which I'll go over during the fighter. Of course, Great Weapon Master is almost everybody's go-to thing, which I'll just look at, which basically is saying that on your turn, when you score a critical hit with a melee weapon or reduce a creature to 0 hit points with 1, you can make one melee attack action as a one attack as a bonus action. So if you crit with a weapon or you kill an enemy, you get an extra attack as a bonus action, but only one. So if you get 2 critical hits in a turn, or you kill 2 enemies in a turn, you don't get to keep on making attacks because you only have 1 bonus action. But the tasty part of it, before you make a melee attack with a heavy weapon that you are proficient with, usually two-handed weapons will on average have the heavy modifier to them, you can choose to take a -5 penalty to the attack roll. If the attack hits, you get to add +10 to the attack's damage. So that's saying that when you roll your d20, you get your total, you subtract 5 from it. If it still hits, you get to add +10 to it, to the damage of it, which means that you just get free damage. So if you're attacking somebody who has a fairly low AC, or you just have a really high bonus to your attack roll, then this is something that you can be throwing out constantly, and then you can start using Reckless Attack, which means that you'll get advantage, kind of negating the -5, as some people will see advantage as a +2 to the roll as well. Not always, but that's essentially what it means, as it increases your chance of rolling better. So you kind of get a easier chance at hitting the enemy when you have advantage. So no point in not taking this, as it is arguably the best one you can take if you're a two-handed fighter, as almost all of them have the heavy option to them. Other things would be, if you want to take Resilient is always something helpful, because you can start with Strength and Constitution, take Resilient for Dex, and that'll allow you to have advantage, or not advantage, be proficient in the Dexterity saving throws, as well as add a 1 to your Dex score. Piercer, if you're using piercing weapons, as that'll allow you to get miscellaneous benefits towards that. Polearm Master, if you're using a polearm weapon, because that'll allow you to gain benefits to that. Savage Attacker, if you'd like. Sentinel wouldn't be too bad, as you can truly be a wall at that point. Taking Slasher, if you're using slashing weapons. Taking Tough to gain even more HP. Taking Weapon Master, but you're already the master of all weapons, so nothing to really take there, but pick and choose to also add flavor to your character, of course, if you don't want to be the generic barbarian. Look at all the other miscellaneous feats. There are lots and lots, and they're adding more in majority of the expansions, so keep an eye out to all of them to fit you the best you can for your campaign. At level 5, you gain extra attack. When you take the attack action, remember, you have to take the attack action during the turn. You get to attack twice instead of once. So that means that if you use the attack action on your turn, make 2 attacks. If you use your action on the turn to use a dash action, you do not get to then take a second action as an attack. This is just allowing you to attack multiple times when you're attacking already. So attack 2 times with a single attack, giving you more times to hit, and more times to be at advantage when using Reckless. Also, starting at 5th level, your speed increases by 10 feet while you aren't wearing heavy armor. You're not going to be wearing heavy armor realistically as the Barbarian, so no need to worry there. So you just get to add 10 feet, which means most races go from 30 to 40. Some of the lower ones, like I believe the Dwarf, who starts at a bit less, and the Gnome or Halfling, who also start with less than 30, can then finally get to 30 or 35, which means that they're on par to normal races. So always helpful, because a lot of times people want to run away from the really big scary person. Well, now you can chase them down because you're faster than them, or potentially faster than them. At 6th level, you don't gain anything, but that's alright, because you did gain your extra HP there. At 7th level, you gain Feral Instinct. Your instincts are so honed? What is honed? Man, English is my first language, guys. Your instincts are so honed that you have advantage on initiative rolls. Additionally, if you are surprised at the beginning of combat and aren't incapacitated, you can act normally on your first turn, but only if you enter your rage before doing anything else on that turn. What this is saying that is when you're rolling initiative, earlier on you had Danger Sense, which gave you on Dex saving throws against effects that you can see, such as traps and spells. This is now giving you advantage on initiative rolls. So when you're rolling initiative at the start of combat, roll that d20 twice and take the higher of the 2 numbers. And then this little extra part is saying that if your team is surprised, as in your team was ambushed, which usually means that you're not able to take you'll all roll initiative, but you have to wait until the entire enemy turn takes their first turns, and then you go into proper combat. This is saying that as long as you rage at the very beginning, you can start attacking even though your team is surprised, you lose the surprise condition as long as you rage at the start, is essentially what that's saying. So you get to ignore the fact that you were surprised by the enemies, and you might actually be able to attack before some of them because now you have an advantage on your initiative roll, which is why your dex is also your second/third, depending on what you want to do, your second/third best ability score, because you will be getting advantage on initiative rolls and advantage on dex saving throws for things that you can see. So a lot of the times, yeah, with a high enough dex, you can basically guarantee that, oh, your team was surprised. Well, you don't care because you're mad and you're going to attack the enemies before they can even attack you, despite the fact that you didn't know they were there until just now. Don't piss me off. I'm the Barbarian. At level 8, you gain your second ASI, as most classes will. Level 9, for most classes, you gain just one real flavorful text. Begin at 9th level, you can roll one additional weapon damage die when determining the extra damage for a critical hit with a melee weapon. This increases to 2 additional dice at 13th level and 3 additional dice at 17th level. Essentially what this is saying is that when you roll, if you get a crit, depending on how you play, some DMs will say that when you're playing, if you get a crit, rather than, if you're rolling a d12 as your weapon die, rather than rolling 1, some people will say, you roll 1, and this now becomes that you did 2 damage, as they'll just double whatever you rolled on the dice. So if you roll 2d12, and you roll, big number here, and you roll 16 damage, well, this is now 32 damage, and then you add your modifiers to that. So if you have a 5 strength, let's say, you roll a 16, double that to 32, and then you add 5, so you did 37 damage. You don't multiply your modifier on a crit, just whatever damage dice is rolled. What this is saying is that because some DMs will say, oh, you roll 1 d12 normally, on a crit you get to roll 2d12 instead of doubling, so now instead of 1d12 you roll a 2d12. So this is on a crit at probably lower level, so if you only have 1d12 on your weapon, that means that this is what you normally get on a normal attack. This is the added effect of getting a crit. This is your damage there, plus the 5 for 22. So this one could say that you normally roll 2 on a crit, you get to roll the 1 extra on a crit, you now get to roll a third dice on the crit because you get to add 1 extra dice, which means that this is from the this is normal roll, this is from the crit, this is from the brutal critical. Other people, like me, I like to double the die, so I like to double the damage, so you'll roll 1. This die right here, so your first number that you roll, so this guy, if this is your first die, this guy is doubled, he becomes 18. This one you would have rolled afterwards as to not confuse yourself, so you would have had 18 damage, plus 4 damage, plus 5 damage, as this is a separate roll that is not affected by the actual double damage from the crit. So, might be a little confusing, but it'll be better explained in another video when I explain how I play the game and how I DM, if that is something that you'd like to all see. Starting at 10th level, this is, once again, nothing that you get from the class itself. When you do have your subclass, you will gain something at level 6 and at level 10, but you don't gain them from the class normally, just from the subclass. At level 11, you get Relentless Rage. Starting at 11th level, your rage can keep you fighting despite grievous wounds. If you drop to 0 hit points while you're raging and don't die outright, you can make a DC 10 Constitution saving throw. If you succeed, you drop to 1 hit point instead. Each time you use this feature after the first, the DC increases by 5, resetting when you take a short or long rest. So what this is saying right here is that if you are raging, and you go to 0, but do not go to negative 93 HP, or less? More? Negative numbers are weird. If you don't go to negative 93 HP, negative 94, negative 95, going down, so I guess less technically, then you do not die. If you go to negative 92 HP in a single hit, you get to then use this ability where you make a DC 10 Constitution saving throw. As long as you don't roll a natural 1, you're basically guaranteed to succeed on the first one, and then you get to come back up because you didn't die, because you're just that mad, you are too angry to die. And then every time you use this feature, the DC increases by 5, so on the second attempt it'll become 15 to 20 to 25, and then that'll reset down to 10 when you finish a short or long rest. So it just really continues with the fact that, Barbarian to Engi to die. At level 12, you get your next ability score increased. And then at 13th level, Brutal Critical goes up. So you'll get 2 extra dice, meaning that now you're rolling for 3, because you get your 1. That roll, the very first roll that happens. Oh, where's that die going? So, for how I do it, this number is doubled, these two are not, these two are just added. So this 4 becomes an 8, this 7 is still a 7, this 10 is still a 10, so that would be a 25, plus whatever extra damage that you get from being, first off, raging. You'll get extra damage from raging as long as you're using a strength weapon. You get extra damage from your strength modifier, you get extra damage if your weapon does extra damage. A lot of things allow you to do extra damage. It's all really good. You just hit really hard, and you hit a whole lot. At 14th level, nothing. That is the capstone for the subclass, so you will get something then. At 15th level, you get Persistent Rage. Beginning at 15th level, your rage is so fierce that it ends early, only if you fall unconscious or if you choose to end it. So, if you remember earlier, here at the Rage, normally this lasts only 1 minute. They take away that little issue there, because you can just rage for unlimited amount of time. It ends early if you were knocked unconscious. That one does stay if you were unconscious, but now you have the ability to not be knocked unconscious from this bad boy, at least a chance to not be knocked unconscious. Or if your turn ends and you haven't attacked a hostile creature since your last turn or taken damage since then, that one also goes away. The only way this ends is if you're knocked unconscious or if you choose to no longer be an angry boy. So, yeah, no issue about, raging, the enemy runs away so you can't hit them on that turn. No, you're still mad. You're even angrier now because you didn't get to hit them. So now you get to hit them again while still angry, not having to waste another bonus action to go into a rage. You're just always angry. You are the Hulk. At 16th level, you get another ASI. At 17th level, you get the final little bit of Brutal Critical, allowing you to roll 3 additional damage die. But do know that if your D12, if your weapon allows you to roll 2d12 naturally, that does not mean that you get to roll 2d12 for each of these. You are just rolling 3 additional weapon die. So that means that you roll 3 additional damage dice. It is not saying that for each damage dice your weapon does, you get to roll an extra one. So this is saying that your 2d12 weapon on a crit will then roll 5 d12s, the first two being doubled in my case. And that also means that if you're rolling like a weapon that has it also does 2d6 fire damage, that it's not saying that your weapon is also doing 5d6 of fire damage. That is the weapon damage dice, the actual what the weapon does, not the magical effect that it does. So your Frostbrand your Frostbrand War Axe that does 2d12 and 2d6 ice damage. 2d12 is the weapon damage. 2d6 is a magical effect. So do not add anything for that. But this is these d12, these 2 d6s right here, these are you rolling the dice, which means that those two are doubled. So for my campaigns, you would double this 1, you would double this 7, you would not double this 8, 9, and 11, but you would double the 4 and the 6. So you just hit pretty hard there, guys. So don't worry about not getting the double, adding the extra bit of damage on for the extra little bit of ice damage. You're still hitting extremely hard, and you get to attack again, maybe again, depending on what you're doing for your class. At 18th level, if your total for a strength check is less than your strength score, you can use that score in place of the total. So that's saying that when you make a strength check, meaning that it is just checks, not saving throws or attack rolls, so if it's an athletic check, if it is just a pure like a strength versus strength check, anything that is a strength check, you can just straight up use your strength score instead. So if your strength score at this point is a 22 or 23 from magical means, you roll your d20 and you're adding... Okay, well, I thought I was going to roll on a 2, but if you rolled, a 2, so it is only a 14 total, well, instead of using that 14, you get to use the 23 that is your ability score that is just straight up your ability score. So make sure that strength is pretty high if you want to be using this one, if you're going to be a pure level 20 Barbarian that does not multiclass. I'm sure another time I will go over like multiclassing stuff and some good options for classes to multiclass with other classes. Like, you probably don't want to be a Barbarian multiclassing with a Wizard, but a Barbarian multiclassing with a Fighter, that's a strong combo. At 19th level, you get your final ASI, and at 20th level, the capstone for the Barbarian class as a whole, you get Primal Champion. At 20th level, you embody the power of the wild. Your strength and constitution scores increase by 4. Your maximum for those scores is now 24. So what that's saying is that no matter what your current strength and constitution score is, you just get to add plus 4 to them. So if you have a 23 strength and a 19 constitution, your strength is now 27, and your constitution is now 23. And usually they cannot go over 20 by non-magical means, meaning that you'd have to have a certain item that increases them. You'd have to have used one of the magical items that just permanently increase a score, something like that. Well, now for strength and constitution only, the maximum is now 24. So once they get to 20, this will allow them to get to 24, or just, 17, 18, 19, and 20. Those now all go above the normal limit of 20 because your max is 24. So just a huge amount, and you immediately get the plus 4 too. So you just become way stronger and way hardier in the fact that your strength, anything that is related to strength, now gets a plus 2 to their effects as their modifier, because it goes up by 4, and same with Constitution, they also go up by things that are related, by anything that is Constitution related, your modifier, your saving throw, and whatever else might be related to Constitution. Perhaps one of your subclasses gave you a that is related to Constitution, which for a couple of them is that they kind of have like spell-like effects that will then have that your spell save DC, quote unquote, is 8 plus proficiency plus Constitution modifier. Well, your Constitution modifiers just went up by, your modifier went up by plus 2, the score by plus 4. That also means that because your strength is now a 27, this indomitable might here with strength checks is less than your strength score, you'll never roll anything less than a 27. Which basically means that if you're having a plus 14, let's say, a plus 14 as your strength checks, you have to be rolling like 13, and higher is the only way that it's going up, which means that you have a higher chance to be using Indomitable Might instead of your D20 roll because of how strong you are. And also, Constitution is related to your health. So now, because of that, your Constitution goes up, your hit points go up. You're now a very hardy fellow. So you'll be high on HP. This will, of course, be higher if I had, all of these, filled out. But as you can see, just naturally, ability score improvements here are plus 4. Because that is what you're getting from the very end thing. There is a racial bonus because on the Barbarian subclass options, I was showcasing, I did become a dwarf to see if that's where you got Battle Rager. It is not, but yeah, so that's why those are there. But yeah, just from ability scores, not including anything that you chose from ASIs, of course. So you become very hardy, very strong, very dependable. You're going to be hitting like a truck, so don't worry. Optional features, make sure that these are okay with your DM before choosing through them. But basically, at 3rd level, instead of gaining, it has, when you reach 3rd level and again at 10th level, you gain proficiency in one skill of your choice from the list of skills available. This is just an additional feature. So right here, this is Primal Knowledge. If you selected these, this is just saying that now you get Primal Knowledge. So it's an optional thing to give you just a little bit more, a little bit more to your class itself, which means that by 10th level, you will have all that is available from, or just about all that is available from what you could have chosen as your starting proficiencies. So if that's okay with your DM, then go ahead and pop this bad boy on, as all it really does is just give you more proficiencies, which are always good to have. And at 7th level, as a part of the bonus action you take to enter your rage, you can move up to half your movement speed. Once again, if this is okay with your DM, Then it's right here, when you get Feral Instinct, you'll also get this, which means that, boom, you go into bonus action, you have a speed of 40, so you start raging, you become angry at something, you then get to move 20 20 feet for free, just because you raged. You still have your movement as normal, and you still have a dash action if you'd like during your action phase. So it's a pretty good thing if you want to choose optional class features, but do make sure consulting with your DM, that is one of the most important things. Consult with DM before choosing these, because if you're choosing these and your DM doesn't know you are, and you're all of a sudden doing things that they didn't know you could do, and it does not say you can do, they might be a little upset. So before you do that, and any other things that you might have added from homebrew related things, make sure that your DM and people are okay, so you're not getting a little bit stronger. Because while these do not make you super overpowered, getting up 2 extra proficiencies, that's kind of like a whatever, but getting to move 20 feet when you enter your rage, that is actually pretty strong, because if you went to your rage and then you for free get to move that 20 feet, which means that you get to attack, and if you kill somebody, you then get to use your normal movement speed to move another 40 feet to somewhere, or potentially enter a rage, run 20 feet, use your movement to run another 40 feet. Yeah, you could potentially move 100 feet on a single turn if you also use your use your action to use it to take the dash action. So it can actually be really strong, so make sure that your DM is not going to be upset that you're doing that. But hey, that is the Barbarian. All of these features that I've just now mentioned, other than the optional feature manager stuff, everything else that I've mentioned is what every single Barbarian gets, so no matter which subclass you choose from here, you will be getting all of these. You'll be getting all these proficiencies, you'll always gain a d12, you can always rage a certain amount of times, always unarmored, reckless, danger, all of these. These will always, no matter what you do, this is the Barbarian in a whole. They are usually the lower intelligence class, lower on spell-related things, the intelligence, charisma, and wisdom stuff. They are your meathead, they're your pure physical, high strength, high constitution, high dexterity, no care about intelligence, no care about charisma, no care about wisdom. Me hit thing with big axe. Me hit thing really hard. That is the Barbarian's play. Can you play Barbarians in other ways? If you like to, but when you boil it down to its core, strength, constitution, dex, those are the 3 things you need to play a Barbarian properly. Make sure you take the big ol' weapon, make sure you take the feats that make you hit harder or can do more things related to other areas of your class, and you've basically got yourself the basic Barbarian. Vary it how you will, vary it according to your primal path or your subclass, vary it to your actual needs. They're somewhat malleable, not as malleable as other classes, but you can certainly do some interesting things when playing the Barbarian. So, if you guys did enjoy this video, then consider hitting the like button and commenting down below what you guys did enjoy so I can continue doing it to make the videos as well as I have been. If you guys didn't like the video, then go ahead and dislike it and comment down below what you guys didn't like so I can improve upon it to make the videos a bit better. If you guys want to know when I upload, then the best way to know is by subscribing. But that does it for this video. Until next time, bye guys.